Welcome back. So we had Dr. Olson talk to us, and one of the things he said, any society that deviates from value-based politicking ends up in chaos, ends up invading NAS, ends up stealing the votes of the electorate. But is it possible in the face of all that to still achieve credible elections with the electorate's vote counting? Liberals, let's look at this whole thing from the legal point of view. What do you think?
Yes,
do you agree with Dr. Olson?
It is possible to achieve credible election with all of this if the people decide that they want elections to be credible. You see, the problem we have is we sit back, we complain, and then, do you know, the end of one election year begins another cycle of another election year. So the moment the election produces a desired result, what do we do with
desired
the umpire?
Or not desired?
No, desired result, like the 2015 election. Oh, we wanted this party out. We wanted a new party. And so the moment they came on board, what did we do with the umpire and the political party? Rather than interact with them on the basis of the promises made, we said, no, give them the first 100 days, give them the first 2 years. And so we started making excuses for them. And when we started making excuses, they also grew to learn to make excuses. But immediately after election, what should have happened would be, oh, this is the social contract that we have with you. And so we want to know where you're starting from. Give us timeline, give us mileage. And then for the umpire, these are the areas that you faltered. And so we need you to strengthen this area. The area of youth or underage voting, nobody discussed it. We just wished it away.
Liberals, you spoke about we can have credible elections.
Yes.
Yeah, credible elections on one side, but taking into cognizance what Dr. Olson said, what about the quality of those putting themselves forward? The elections may be credible, but what are you choosing from? That becomes an issue.
Do you know why the elections are not credible? People don't even want to participate because we already have this self-defeatist attitude to it won't be credible. So there's no need for a neota to stand for election.
But that is changing now.
Yes.
People are going to get their voters' cards because they want to be part of the process.
If it were before, a Sowore, for example, excuse me, will not come out to say, I want to be president. Moghalu will not come out to say, I want to be president. And then also, people won't be saying, go get your PVC, because that's the only instrument that will enable you determine what happens in government. But otherwise, you will sit down and continue to complain. So, and then what they do, what the politicians do is, the moment you are, if they want to give you appointment now, the first question is he, independent-minded? Once you are independent-minded, nobody wants to touch you with a long pole because they'll say, oh, he will be stubborn. He won't listen to order. And for them, politics is 99.9% loyalty. And so, what's loyalty is dictated and determined by the man who is at top. And so it is not about your capacity, like Doctor said, your capacity to appreciate the problem and proffer solutions. It is about your capacity to dobale. Oh, yes, sir. And that's politics here. And so for us to achieve credible election, the people first need to be involved. The rules, when you are involved, that's when you begin to identify the rules. What are those rules? Look at Ibrahim Mantu. You talk about Ibrahim Mantu. Nobody from his constituency have hit the street to say, oh, look, so you have, be stealing from us, because that's our collective right. Vote. You say we manipulated the process, and you go to say.
So, if you're talking about people from the streets, he coming out to say you still have vote. So, yes, people from the streets should also come out and hold those in the National Assembly that invaded the National Assembly.
Definitely, definitely. That's what Senate societies do. This won't happen in Senate societies where democracy is practiced, and the people will fold their hands, and then all we do is to WhatsApp it and tweet it, and it ends there. Because that issue that happened at the National Assembly, it's something that we shouldn't just allow to be swept under the carpet. You know.
Let me just let me just rewind a little bit. You mentioned, you gave examples of two people who are interested in politics now.
Yes.
Is it as a result of the fact that they believe, or the Nigerian society believes, that elections are becoming more and more credible?
Yes, to some extent. If you remember, it was the agitations of the civil society that made Goodluck Jonathan to appoint Jega as INEC chairman. That, okay, now I want to appoint, because at that time also, remember, there were the Ways Committee report that the umpire should not be appointed by the president. And there were agitations from the civil society. The people, look, we want to change. And so he said, well, I appointed a man I don't even know, and who also has some leaning towards civil society. And there were some reforms. Do you know that the introduction of the card reader, changed a whole lot for the 2015 election? One would have expected that immediately after that time, Nigerians would be agitating. What were the lapses? And how do we take it a notch further? But rather than all of those agitations, what we had was reordering of elections, Section 25. That one had no bearing whatsoever with the people.
That has not been concluded yet, has it?
It has been concluded. It has been concluded. So it has no bearing whatsoever with the people. It's about the presidency and the legislators, who will come first. And rather than talking about how do we ensure that our vote counts, because also they mooted the idea of electronic voting that would have also allowed the process to be more transparent. And INEC now is talking about transmission of results, that they identify that where the manipulations come in is at the point of voting and at the point of collation. And that's so they want to use electronic transmission. These provisions, how are they covered in our Electoral Act? So that somebody tomorrow will not go to court and say, this transmission were done without recourse to the law. Remember, Senator Udoma Egbe did challenge even the card readers, that is electronic voting, and it was not covered in the Act. So we need, first and foremost, once the people identify the problem, politicians will do it for you. That's why they tell you, power is not given, it is taken. And the only way people take power is to agitate. Look at what happened even at the National Assembly. Senator Omo Agege said, look, the suspension cannot stand. And so I won't sit at home and say, I will have gone to court, and the court had ruled consistently in other cases that this cannot stand. And so rather than sit at home and wait for another court to give the same ruling that they had given consistently, I will go sit with my mates and let's see what happens. That's how people agitate for a better society. You don't sit down and go on Twitter, go on Facebook, and expect that National Assembly or the politicians will just hand power to you.
Talking about people.
I was going to bring in the professional in politics.
Okay, just a brief. Talking about the people. Men are said to be ultimate maker of history. But history itself has shown that every epoch-making event in life has been through the selflessness of very few people. That is why people come to leadership. Nigerians are the most patriotic anywhere all over the world, given the right condition. You get the point? But the leader, look,